So this is kind of a continuation of part 1, where I talked about Inanna, the mother goddess, queen of heaven, goes by many different names. The priesthood associated with this goddess is a transvestite, and that's we've seen that from ancient Babylon. Then it gets into Greece and Rome. So this mother goddess is worshipped all over the world. Today goes by different names. And the system of eunuch priests, or transvestite priests, has also spread around the world. So I came across this academic journal called Priests of the Goddess, Gender Transgression in Ancient Religion by Will Roscoe, 1996. So this paper talks about mainly 3 types of transvestite priests of the mother goddess. The first are the Galli from Greece. Undoubtedly the most shocking practice attributed to Galli, self-castration. And next are the Hydra, neither man nor woman. The Hydra of India, members of a contemporary cult of goddess worshippers, estimated to number some 50,000 in northern India alone, with roots that may be as old or older than those of the Galli. Hydra are males devoted to the worship and service of Bahukara Mata, one of the many Indian mother goddess figures. The most striking parallel between the 2 cults is the practice of castration. In both cases, the procedure appears to have been traditionally performed in a temple, with the parts buried there or under a tree. In the case of Hydra, both penis and testicles are removed by an expert, while the initiate chants the name of the mother goddess. The blood is allowed to flow freely in the belief that it drains away the heat that is the source of both maleness and sexual desire. As a result, the initiate is nirvana, liberated, reborn. He becomes a sannyasi or itinerant saint who embodies the strength of the goddess. Embodies the strength, all right? He's possessed by the goddess and is able to convey it to others in the form of blessings and also curses. They channel the goddess of fertility. Castration does not transform Hydra into women. We are neither men nor women, although they generally wear women's clothing in public. Their exaggerated femininity and body public behavior immediately gives them away as Hydra. It's kind of like the Hydra celebrities that we see on TV. Their body public behavior gives them away. Some Hydra fulfilled important roles in palace administration. Kind of like in the White House, they still do. The oldest texts attribute supernatural powers and or religious roles to eunuchs. Now we'll look at ancient Mesopotamia. The oldest of these roles is that of the Sumerian Gala priest. See, Gala became Gali in Greece. Gala appear in temple records dating back to the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. The word Gala was written using the signs penis plus anus. All right. So Kalu, Kugaru, and Asinu were typically identified as servants of Inanna Ishtar. They appear to have portrayed the goddess in ritual by wearing masks and cross-dressing. Now there's this story, the descent of Inanna. Inanna went down to the netherworld. All reproduction stopped when Inanna was in the underworld. The way that Inanna came back from the netherworld was that Enki created androgynes to help Inanna come back to the world. So it was the androgynes that could transcend the barriers between the material and the spiritual world. The androgynes were like a portal to another world. In the Era myth, for example, Ishtar is referred to as changing the masculinity of the Kugaru and Asinu into femininity. Although this has been interpreted as evidence of a physical transformation, namely castration, it could just as easily refer to a psychological transformation, the result of divine possession or visitation, as was the case with the Galli and Hydra. So they're being possessed by the goddess. Table 1. Parallels among Mediterranean, the Greeks and the Romans, Indian, and Mesopotamian goddess priesthoods. Membership by initiation. They practice spontaneous self-castration and castration in a temple, with parts buried there. Attis, their mythological patron, castrates himself under a pine tree. Ah, like a Christmas tree? Well, the Hydra in India, again, membership by initiation, parts buried there under a tree. Self-castration occurs in myths. Let's check out the Gala, Kugaru, and the Asinu from Babylon and Assyria. Ceremonies for the new Gala. All right, in Babylon, gender transformed by Inanna, Ishtar, partly female and partly galley-specific dress. Hydra, the cross-dress, combination of male and female dress. They'll wear male on one side and female clothes on the other side. Gala sing in female dialect, so they sing like women. Kugaru and Asinu wear goddess masks, channeling the goddess. Sag dress half male, half female. Same thing. Priests of Sibyl, religious performers, festivals, MTV Video Awards, the Oscars, music, singing, dancing, bloodletting, acting as well, theater. All right, now this is from a book called The Syrian Goddess by Lucian in the middle of the 2nd century BC. The goddess was Rhea, the shrine work of Attis, first taught the sacred mysteries of Rhea. For when Rhea deprived him of his powers, he put off his manly garb and assumed the appearance of a woman and her dress. And roaming over the whole earth, he performed his mysterious rites, narrating his sufferings and chanting the praises of Rhea. He also affirmed that the Galli, who are in the temple, in no case castrate themselves in honor of Juno, but of Rhea. And this is imitation of Attis. Meantime, the custom once adopted remains even today, and many persons every year castrate themselves and lose their virile powers. They certainly castrate themselves, and then cease to wear man's garb. They don women's raiment and perform women's tasks. During these days they are made Galli. As the Galli sing and celebrate their orgies, frenzy falls on many of them, and many who had come as mere spectators afterwards are found to have committed the great act. The great act, the great work, the philosopher's stone. I used to be a little boy. It burns. Any young man who has resolved on this action strips off his clothes and with a loud shout bursts into the midst of the crowd and picks up a sword from a number of swords which I suppose have been kept ready for many years for this purpose. He takes it and castrates himself and then runs wild through the city, bearing in his hands what he has cut off. He casts it into any house at will, and from this house he receives women's raiment and ornaments, maybe some makeup as well. Then he goes to Hollywood. Thus they act during their ceremonies of castration. The female deity is shown by her very name, Atargatis, to be a form of Ishtar or Astarte. A custom of similar character commonly attached itself to the worship of the Great Mother in her various forms. So the religion of Sibyl entered the Roman world. When Imperial Rome conquered the larger part of the Mediterranean world, the religion of Sibyl followed in its wake. Neither is he changed into a woman, nor does he remain a man, wrote Augustine. All right, this is from Augustine's City of God, written around the 4th century. To be present in the temples of devils, to witness the priests of Sibyl mutilating themselves, the effeminate being consecrated, castrated, the raving fanatics cutting themselves, Galli, the castrated priests of Sibyl. These gods of the pagans are all evil, because they are not gods, but evil spirits. These gods who desire to be honored by theatrical plays, these gods exacting plays in their own honor, they had them dedicated to themselves, consecrated to themselves. The demons who delighted in blinding men to the truth. The gods demand stage plays in their own honor. So there's this correlation between the transvestite priest and the actors in the dramas. And the Olympics, by the way, right? The Olympics is also done in honor of the gods. That's why we have all these transgendered Olympic athletes. The golden ass, all right, there's another primary source. Everyone hideously made up, their faces crazy with muddy paints, and their eyes artfully lined. The soil became wet with the filthy blood of the effeminates. Carl Jung sees the figure of the androgyne, the projection of a longing for a return to primordial unity. Sounds like the United Nations for escape from the unbearable tension of the opposites. That's why they have all this Me Too movement and all these sexual harassment things in the news. They're all fake to give us the unbearable tension of the opposites to give us chaos, and they will bring order, which is primordial unity, for a mode of humanity no longer divided into halves. Plato's Symposium. Transcending gender had to begin with the renunciation of sexuality. At the time of the birth of Christ, cults of men devoted to a goddess flourished throughout the broad region extending from the Mediterranean to South Asia. While Galli were missionizing the Roman Empire, Kalu, Kurgaru, and Asinu continued to carry out ancient rites in the temples of Mesopotamia. And the third gender, predecessors of the Hydra, were clearly evident in India. All right, this is 2,000 years ago. There were trannies all over the place. To complete the picture, we should also mention the megabazoi, or eunuch priests of Artemis at Ephesus. All right, now that's where Paul goes there. Western Semitic Kedoshim, the male temple prostitutes known from the Hebrew. All right, that's in the Bible. They call them Kedoshim. That's plural for Kadesh. All right, a sodomite is a transvestite priest for the mother goddess. The real translation should be transvestite pagan priest. There are some Bible verses talking about sodomites. So the King James, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor sodomite of the sons of Israel. All right, so this word sodomite. And this is the English Standard Version. None of the daughters of Israel shall be a cult prostitute, and none of the sons of Israel shall be a cult prostitute. All right, so the word sodomite is now called cult prostitute. We don't realize that these are transvestite priests for the pagan gods. Now, this is the Septuagint, which is actually the oldest copy of the Bible we have. There shall not be an initiated person of the sons of Israel. You see that? Initiated. There's an initiation. They're being castrated to the gods. All right, now 1 Kings 14:24, again, King James. There were sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations. There were transvestite priests in the land. All right, that's what that means. English Standard Version. There were also male cult prostitutes in the land. Now, Septuagint, again, and there was a conspiracy in the land. Not a conspiracy theory. There was an actual conspiracy. A secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. That's what it means. There was a conspiracy of trannies in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations, all right? So that's what the Septuagint said. The oldest version of the Bible we have calls it a conspiracy. And the Septuagint also says they were initiated. An initiated person through the mystery schools, the pagan religions. All right, now finally somebody removed the sodomites out of the land and abolished the practices which his fathers had kept up. All right, the Israelites started doing this stuff. And from the land he exterminated the remnant of the male cult prostitutes. And he pulled down the house of the sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove tents for the grove. All right, and King Josias burned those who had in them a divining spirit, the wizards, the images, the idols, and the sodomites, which were in the land of Judah and Jerusalem. So the transvestite priests, they're in the same category as divining spirit, wizards, images, idols, transvestite priests. And then actually in Job, the word Kadesh in Hebrew is used here. They die in their youth, and their life is among the unclean. It's pretty vague, right? You don't know what that means. They die in their youth, and their life ends among the cult prostitutes, all right? The Hebrew word is Kadesh, transvestite priests. Now look at this, Septuagint. Let their soul die in youth, and their life be wounded by messengers of death. So the tranny priest is a messenger of death, according to the Septuagint. Leviticus 18, this whole chapter is basically about sexual sin and sexual boundaries and stuff like that. Then right in the middle of it, he says, shall not give any of your children to offer them to Molech, and so profane the name of your God. Sexual sin, don't do this, don't sleep with your mother, that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, don't sacrifice your children to Molech, murdering children in a chapter about sexual sin. No, I believe this is talking about castrating children to Molech. Do not castrate your child to Molech. That's the ritual. That's the initiation. Then it talks about homosexuality, and then it talks about bestiality. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel and made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen. sons pass through the fire, that's an initiation. I believe that's a castration ritual they're talking about. They're passing through the fire. See, they're not thrown in the fire, they're passing through it. They come out the other side of the fire, but they're changed. He said, don't turn your child into sodomites. He says it right here. And here it says, they burnt their sons and daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not to. This is from the Jewish Virtual Library, from the cult of Moloch. They speak about passing children to Moloch in the fire. According to rabbinic interpretation, this prohibition is against passing children through fire and then delivering them to the pagan priests, right? Passing them through fire, then delivering them to pagan priests. In other words, according to this interpretation, this refers to an initiation rite, initiation or consecration. Remember that? We've seen these words already used in terms of sodomites. An initiated person. It's another word for a castrated priest to the mother goddess. So the word sodomite, not an inhabitant of Sodom, but those devoted, Kedeshim, plural of Kadesh, those devoted to unnatural lust in Ashtoreth's honor. Ashtoreth. Her priests were eunuchs in women's attire, prostituted themselves to enrich the temple of this goddess. Effeminatus, right? Sodomite, Kadesh, effeminatus in Latin. This dreadful consecration, or rather desecration, was spread in different forms all over the world. The Galli, there it is right there, the Galli priests. All right, so the Kedeshim, known from the Hebrew Bible, and also the Ugaritic texts, right, the Assyrian text of the late 2nd millennium BC, and the Caleb, priest of Astarte at Kition and elsewhere. Beyond India, modern ethnographic literature documents gender-variant shaman priests. Yeah, there you go. Gender-variant shaman priests throughout Southeast Asia, Borneo, and Sulawesi. All these roles share the traits of devotion to a goddess, gender transgression, and homosexuality, and actual or symbolic castration. Most at some point in their history were based in temples and therefore part of the religious economic administration, the mass media industrial complex of their respective city-states. These were high-ranking trannies, same as it ever was. The goddesses who stand at the head of these cults, Sybil, Bahukara Mata, and Inanna Ishtar, and Mother Mary with the eunuch priests, also share important traits. All three are credited with the power to inspire divine madness, which can include the transformation of gender. Ishtar, the goddess of sexuality, is notoriously promiscuous, never marries, and indeed is herself a transvestite. To turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man are yours, Inanna. In all three cultural regions, the goddess-inspired priests were conceptualized as occupying a distinct gender category, as we have seen. Hydra routinely refer to themselves as neither men nor women. In a similar way, the flow of blood during the castration of Hydra is believed to empty them of both desire and gender. Because of this, they can serve as vehicles for the transmission of the sexual energy of the goddess. They become her phallus, as it were, erotic ascetics. So this is the entry on Ashtoreth. The chief goddess of the Phoenicians, as Baal, was the male. By the plural, different phases of the same deity. Ashtoreth, the female version, the female phase, and Baal was the male phase of one deity. The active and passive powers of nature, generative and receptive, suggested the male and female deities, Baal and Ashtoreth. And that's what the Freemasons talk about all the time. All right, here's another dictionary. Although a Baal was a male god and Ashtoreth a female god, the two are often linked to represent the religion commonly known as Baalism. Ashtoreth of the Zidonians, Ishtar of the Akkadians, and Astarte of the Greeks, the Queen of Heaven. Mother Mary of the Catholics with their eunuch priests, kind of representing the eunuchs, right? The word eunuch can be used for someone who's chosen a life of celibacy. Catholicism is a goddess-worshipping cult. Of course, Diana was the name of Wonder Woman. The goddess of Ephesus, called Artemis by the Greeks, now under the male form, now under the female. The priests were eunuchs and were called megabazoi. The Ephesian cult of Artemis was by no means confined to Ephesus. The statement of Acts, whom all Asia and the Roman world worship, was no exaggeration. So this cult of transvestite priests worshiping the mother goddess was all over the world. Artemis worship was at length Christianized in the middle of the 5th century by the substitution of the mother god, Theotokos. This was the beginning of Mariolatry. All right, what do you think that means? Mariolatry. The idol worship of Mary, all right? Now, I always get these comments when I talk about Mary. Hey, Mary is a great woman, a human female, mother of Jesus Christ. But Mary is not a goddess. They changed the name, again, of Artemis to Mary, all right? Just like it changed from Inanna, Ishtar, Ashtoreth. Now it's Artemis. Now it's Mary. First thing people do when they enter the Catholic Church is they bow down to Mary, all right? When they enter a Catholic Mass, you got to bow down to Mary. That's the first thing you do. I know a guy who was Catholic. In fact, he told the priest, he said, yeah, I'm praying to God. I'm praying to Jesus, and I still have this problem. And the priest told him, oh, you got to pray to Mary. It's Inanna Ishtar. It's the androgynous, self-generating deity. It's the mother goddess. And there's always a eunuch priest lurking around, molesting children, just like they did back in the day. The goddess was called the Queen of Heaven, and the worship was said to be paid to the host of heaven. Baal had priests and prophets consecrated to his service. Consecrated, all sorts of infamous and immodest actions were committed in the festivals of Baal and Astarte. Okay, now in Josephus' War of the Jews, 70 AD, when the Romans were attacking Jerusalem, Jews were actually fighting amongst themselves. They indulged themselves in feminine wantonness. They decked their hair and put on women's garments and were besmeared over with ointments that they might appear very comely. They had paints under their eyes and imitated not only the ornaments, but also the lusts of women. They rolled themselves up and down the cities. While their faces looked like the faces of women, they killed with their right hands. And when their gait was effeminate, they presently attacked men and became warriors. These are Jews who dressed up like women and attacked other Jews. In fact, they're kind of reenacting this goddess of fertility and warfare, right, by doing that. This is from 1 Enoch. Azazel taught men, swords, knives, shield, breastplates, and basically warfare, right? And then bracelets, ornaments, the use of paint, beautifying of the eyebrows, right? Said they taught men so that the world became altered. Jubilees. And he told them of the judgment of the giants and the judgment of the transvestite pagan priests, how they had been judged on account of their wickedness. All right, now I'm going to talk about theater. Many societies prohibited women from performing on stage, so boys and men took the female roles. In the ancient Greek theater, men played females, as they did in English Renaissance theater, and continue to do so today. Japanese kabuki theater, onagata, that means female form. Chinese opera, specialized male actors who play female roles. Athens was the center. It was institutionalized as part of a festival called the Dionysia. Tragodia, 2 Greek words, tragos, or goat, ode, meaning song. Goat song, that's what tragedy means. So these fertility rituals became the basis for tragedy and comedy, right? Trannies in the theater. Same thing as trannies at the temple. Male actors playing female roles would wear a wooden structure on their chest to imitate the look of breasts, right? A little bit more high-tech nowadays. And another on their stomachs to make them appear softer and more ladylike. They're wearing a kind of moon bump back then. White body stockings under their costumes to make their skin appear fairer. Some of the Japanese gods have ambiguous gender, being neither male nor female. The belief spread that some people could change their gender depending on the lunar phase. The term half-moon, Hangetsu, was coined to describe such beings. Kabuki remains all male even today. Figure 1, sodomite in theater in the present era. Transvestite, pagan priest. There's the mask, right? There's the mask, tattoos, 33, and the male cult prostitute, the actor. A lot of these actors have transgender children that are kind of openly transgender. I think this one does, actually. I think most of them do. And what does the name mean, by the way? Angelina Jolie, right? Remember, the J is a relatively new invention. Angel, right? Angel, holy, holy angel. And there we have implements of castration. Castration clamps found in the river Tame and now at the Museum of London. Bronze ritual Roman-era castration clamps. And notice it looks just like a Freemason sign. This is castration, right? This peace sign, that's what it means. Castration, they're doing it near the eyes. You'll be enlightened, and is doing this thing here as well, right? You know, there could be a number of meanings of this peace sign, and a lot of times people are just guessing at what they mean. But what does it mean for them? Why do they do it? I think it means this. And I think this means this. It's the same thing. It's a castration cult, transvestite cult, all for the goddess Inanna. They're castrated, transgendered, pagan priests. These people are in the transgendered elite that run the world. It's always been this way, really. Until the end, they will be destroyed, and we will inherit the earth, all right? This is the religion that's in direct opposition. They, in fact, they imitate everything, and they just do it totally opposite, right? These are the transvestite pagan priests and entertainers in the Babylonian and Greek and Jewish mystery schools, mystery religions. Combination of paganism and mysticism. All right, let me conclude. Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, Freemason, 33rd degree. This union of the universe with itself, this mutual action of two sexes, he terms the great secrets of nature, the mysteries of the union of heaven with earth, imaged in the sacred mysteries of Attis and Bacchus, Dionysus. All the masters in alchemy who have written of the great work have employed symbolic and figurative expressions, being constrained to do so as well, to repel the profane, the uninitiated, from a work that would be dangerous for them, as to be well understood by adepts in revealing to them the whole world of analogies governed by the single and sovereign dogma of Hermes. So in their language, gold and silver are the king and queen, or the sun and moon, Ashtoreth and Baal, sulfur, the flying eagle, Mercury, the man-woman, the atom cadmon. That's the hexagram. That's on the Great Seal of the United States and above the flying eagle. Winged and bearded, mounted on a cube, crowned with flames, matter or salt. The winged dragon, the metals in ebullition, lines of different colors, Inanna Ishtar. And finally, the entire work has for its symbols the pelican and the phoenix. All right, the phoenix is Inanna Ishtar. Inanna Ishtar descended to the other world and rose again. All right, that's what the phoenix is representing. Inanna descending to the underworld. How did Inanna return from the underworld? The androgynes. Remember, the other god created a race of androgynes so that Inanna Ishtar could return to Earth. So what I believe is that this is the origins of the modern-day transgender agenda. The nations are still under the control of these gods and goddesses with their transgendered, transvestite priests. Nothing's changed.